there you are again, buddy. The best part of doing these, besides these amazing guests that we get to talk to,
What's
is,
that?
is spending some time with you, man.
Well, you know what? We get so busy sometimes that it's hard to do that.
It is. I owe you a stop by in Ohio sometime again if I get back there and not running and gunning so much that I forget where I'm at.
I think
I was
what
there.
we'll do is just when you guys are coming down 75 to go home to Florida, I'm just going to stand out at the interstate and wave at you from the bridge.
Hey, I'll say, I'll look up and say, "Hey, babe, I think that's. I think that was Wes."
Is that Wes doing the honk on the, dark? Yeah.
Well, you know what? I would expect no less from you. But
right.
Oh man. So, anyways, things are good with you.
Things are great. They couldn't even
Awesome.
be, as long as you're above ground, life is good, Randy.
Life is good, man. Always got an opportunity to make a difference and do what we love what we do, which is exactly what we're doing today. And we do a lot of industry stuff, and this one's kind of a fun one because Ben Hackley, who's a fractionalized CFO. We're going to talk about what the heck that means for anybody that doesn't know, but he's got an MBA and a bachelor's, James Madison University, and in Wake Forest. Guy's kind of smart. And so he's going to chat with us. He's been with 5 Fortune 500 companies, and we're going to chat about what a fractional CFO does, why it makes sense. And what I really love about this is it fits the building wins thing pretty well, right, Wes? Because, a lot of industry guys, this is not a pole barn builder or a roll forming manufacturer or any of that, but it's a guy that so many people in our industry might have a need for. And that's kind of what we like to do, right? Bring opportunities to people. So.
And all those credentials are very, very impressive. But last night I finished my PB&J. I'd just like to point that out.
That's good. That one might be the highlight of the show right there.
That's right.
Yeah, Wes Wyatt, PBG, PBJ, or PBR, or
they're like he's finished more than one. We can tell that.
Yeah. Oh man, good stuff. All right. Well, our friend Ben is so kind to come to us from Croatia. That's not where he lives. That's just where he's hanging in an Airbnb at like 7 o'clock at night. So he's got to get to work now. Once he gets done with us. So let's go get Ben and see what he's got to say.
And quit these hijinks.
Well, I've had almost enough of you already. Anyway.
All right.
All right. Let's do it. Welcome, Ben. How are you?
Good, Randy. How you doing today?
I could not be any better. I'm practicing a mantra of mine, doing what I love and loving what I do, man.
Yeah, I've already made my first note. PBJ. I've got to remember that one.
Yes. You should add that. You can say I've got. Let me got the notes here. You've got your bachelor's from James Madison, your MBA from Wake Forest, and your PBJ from JIF or something. I don't know.
There you go.
That with some that might be the most popular. Actually, that would probably give you the most credit.
I probably have more experience with the PBJ than any of them.
Probably. Yes, exactly. Well, thank you for coming on. Just in pre-show, I did not realize that you were halfway around the world. So I appreciate you taking the time to jump on at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night over where you're at right now. I think
it's 7 o'clock. Not
7 o'clock.
It's the middle of my workday actually.
There you go. Well, that's true because most of your work is in the U.S. I take it, or do you do some stuff?
Yeah. So, I keep all my clients. I'll keep it in the U.S. So.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, anyways, welcome. I appreciate you being on. We've got to become acquainted a little bit via social media, just following each other, and I really enjoy your work. I enjoy what you do. I enjoy your content. And as I said, when I was having a little back and forth with Wes there, I find the concept of what you do very interesting, and that's one of the things that I like to bring. Wes and I like to bring to the audience is some people that they might not be exposed to, right? They might not be exposed to what even does this crazy fractionalized CFO thing even mean, right?
Sure.
So I think it's a great thing to talk about. So as we get started, we'll just do some back and forth. Nothing structured, but tell us about yourself a little bit. If there's anything else you want to talk about, I know you've been with some Fortune 500 companies, so you got a lot of cred. But what did we miss that people ought to know about Ben Hackley?
Well, yeah, I've spent my whole career in the accounting and finance world, and CFO, controller roles in the corporate world. And then about 10 years ago or so, a friend of mine started his own little side business or small business, and he said, "Hey, Ben, you know accounting and business? Can you help me out a little bit?" And I said, "Sure." And I went, "Well, why did I say yes?" But I fell in love with it. I love working directly with the owner. Um, Got no corporate bureaucracy involved. So along the way, I picked up a couple other clients on the side doing this. I just loved it. But then COVID hit, came out of COVID and kind of had a fork in the road. I couldn't see myself going back into the 45-minute one-way commute every day to the office. And I said, well, let's just jump off and do this fractional CFO work full time. That's what I've been doing. And like we alluded to earlier, I work with small businesses in the U.S., primarily in manufacturing distribution arenas, but I have picked up clients in other areas, which is, in my mind, the way I look at it, it's all about cash flow, no matter what business you're in, whether it's manufacturing, distribution, a hair salon, whatever. It's all about managing that cash flow. And I like the variety, but I do focus on in the manufacturing and distribution world. That's where all my experience lies.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So, and what for folks that might not really understand what it means to be a fractionalized CFO, or what they'd be if they go, Randy, I listen to this Ben guy. What exactly is that? It's probably a very elementary question, but let's just start there. What exactly does that mean?
It's a very good question and a very important question, because a lot of people just give it a label. They know they need some bookkeeping help, and bookkeeping help gets expanded in this broad spectrum from bookkeeping to high level CFO. But the CFO work I do, it's more. Every corporation has a CFO that's paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to make sure the financial success and the financial viability of the business is ongoing. And a fractional CFO does that same work, but I focus on small business, because most small businesses, you can't afford $300,000 a year CFO.
Right.
Fractional, it's where somebody like me comes in. It's fractional in that it's a fraction of the cost and it's a fraction of the time. So most small businesses just need that, just the guidance, an outsider looking in, an objective view. And I focus on, forecasting the business, the cash flow of the business, what are the pitfalls, risks and opportunities, things like that. A lot of people hear the word CFO, they think, oh, that's the bookkeeper. Well, there's two different things.
So what is the difference? I mean, tell us the difference for somebody that may be wondering that exact question.
Actually, answer that another way. A CFO can't do their job without a good bookkeeper.
Got it.
Bookkeeper is the person that records the daily transactions, paying the vendors, collecting from the customers, maybe processing payroll. It's just a day in, day out transaction processing is what the bookkeeper does. And then as you move up the spectrum from a bookkeeper to an accounting person may do some month-end financial reports, close the books every month, produce inventory reports, do a little bit of analysis, and then you move on up the spectrum to the CFO, where the CFO looks at the numbers, evaluates the business, and helps project the future of the business and guide the future of the business, forecasting, and it's an all-encompassing look at everything that affects cash in the business, inventory, receivables, payables, debt, owner distributions, you name it. So it's all kind of looked at under one package and one big puzzle. It puts the pieces all together.
Right. Well, that's so. Then you just nailed it with what I was thinking there. So you're taking all the information, all the input. It's all together and placed on your desk. You're going to review it and then talk to the CEO, the owner, the right. partners, whatever the case may be, depending on the business structure, and help guide them. Okay, here's where we're at. What do
Right.
we do with this? And because unfortunately, without somebody like your position, a CFO position, my mind would be, oh, we get the books done. But so
Yeah.
what? That's only a small part, an important part, because you can't do what you do without that, right? But
Right.
okay, so we made $26,000 this month. But what's that
Yeah.
mean? What do we do with that? Where do we go from here? Right? Is that
Yeah.
that's
That's a
really the level?
and that's a good question, and that's a good point. I mean, you made $26,000 this year. Could you have made more? You
Mm-hmm.
know, are there hidden losers in that equation that you're missing out on? A lot of
Right.
people just look at their sales. Sales are growing. Everything's fine. You know, they're puzzled about why they never have any cash in the bank, but their sales are growing. So you know, can't be too bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of moving pieces to that, obviously, especially in the manufacturing world where you've
Oh
got
yeah.
inventory, machine tools to maintain. You got a lot to consider that falls under that uh, management scope that you have to look at.
Yeah, that makes sense. So
Yeah,
I'm curious. So when somebody's sitting here and they're going, you know what? Maybe I don't know. Maybe I need a CFO because things just don't seem to be exactly right. What is that defining moment where a potential client, you know, what situation is created where they finally the bell goes off and they said, you know, I got to call Ben because I need some help. What is there certain warning bells that go off, or is it because they listen to some podcast and they go, oh, I guess Randy and Benson, we need a CFO, so I guess we better hire a CFO, right? I'm sure that's
yeah.
not probably the case. So, what is it that triggers that typically, or
Well,
should trigger it?
my experience, a big trigger is when a business owner feels like their decision process is just a guessing game, right? They're they know they have to invest, whether it be in new equipment or a marketing campaign or go to a trade show or hire people. They know there's all these actions they should be taking, and it's like throwing darts at a dartboard. They're just
Mm-hmm.
guessing which one's the right one to do for the business. um, and that's where somebody like a CFO can add value, not only help you make those decisions, but help you make the right decision where the CFO pretty much pays for himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
By making the right decisions for the business. Um, but yeah, a lot of people get back to what a CFO does versus what a bookkeeper does. A lot of people, say, "Oh, the owner's sitting there, and he's been doing it all himself. He's been paying the bills. He's been calling customers to collect." And he said, and they'll say, "Oh, I need a CFO to do all this." Well, that guy needs a bookkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if somebody wants to pay me an exorbitant fee to pay bills, I guess I'll do that for a little while. But
Right,
you're
right,
not you're not getting the best value there.
right.
But
Well,
no, it's when that owner starts, losing sleep, and he thinks his decision process is really breaking down to nothing but a guessing game.
mm-hmm.
Um, Especially if these guesses start to fail, right?
Yeah,
And he realizes, wait a minute, I need a more all-encompassing look. And another thing a fractional CFO does is you really need, and I tell this to any business owner, whether it's me or somebody else or an informal board of directors, you really need that outside person looking in, because business owners, just by nature, are very optimistic, usually overly optimistic.
mm-hmm.
And the next big win is just around the corner. The next big great quarter, if I could just get another loan to get me to that, high season of the year. I've seen more people try to borrow their way out of a bad business, right?
Oh, okay,
uh, so you really need that outsider looking in to give you impartial advice. Not a family member that says, "Oh, everything you do is great," not somebody
right.
just to pat your back and the yes person, but you really need an outsider. And I encourage any business owner, whether it's a fractional CFO like myself, just an informal board of advisors is always a good idea. Just some external group that you can trust to be honest with you and tell you like it is.
Yeah.
Tell you when no, that's a bad decision, that's a good decision, etc.
Well, I think that's a great point, Ben, because I think you're right. By nature, entrepreneurial minded people, the grass is always greener. It's always going to be great. It's always one day away from the big deal. But sometimes they need somebody that has enough of a vested interest, my opinion, because as the fractionalized CFO, there's a vested interest from they hired you to do a job for them, right?
Yeah,
And you're only going to continue uh, doing that job for them and getting paid as long as you give them good advice. But you're also not trying to stay on the payroll, so to speak, right? So you're not going to be the yes man because that's what Bob, the boss, wants to hear. I would assume there's I would assume there's a more open, realistic. I'm not afraid to tell you the truth, whether you like it or not, from a fractionalized than an employee that's serving the same position. Is that a correct assumption on my part or no?
That's a very, very true assumption. Yeah, I feel. I mean, if I think back to my days in the corporate world, and what I do now, there is a much freer sense for me to be totally honest and tell the business owner the way things are. A lot of times in the corporate world, I guess you just get, well, I guess corporate burnout, where you just get tired of fighting those battles, and you get tired of giving advice that's not followed because it's not in compliance with the corporate objectives, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, you're right. As a fractional, I feel totally, with all my clients, I feel totally open to tell them whatever I think. Now, hard part is selling them on that advice because, say it again, they're just overly optimistic. And it's very rare to meet a business owner that ultimately they may come to the conclusion that this business is tanking, I need to get out of it. But they try everything under the sun to avoid that.
Right.
And they just prolong the pain basically until they finally make a tough decision.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. You know, I was thinking as you said that it's a concept, I guess, that I think exists with a lot of people, not only just in this, but I call it the ugly baby syndrome, which is everybody, when they have a baby, they think their baby's the cutest little thing ever in the planet. Yeah. And they're going to argue that to death, as they should. But everybody else looks at it and go, man, that's an ugly baby, right? And I think that comes into play here because the business owner, he's so close to it that's his baby, whether it's a beautiful baby or an ugly baby. And at some point, like you said, and going back, but I love that is somebody like yourself needs to say, George, look, dude, I know you love it. I know you love coming to work every day and this is your baby, but here's the brutal, honest answer, right? And sometimes you just got to get to that point. And entrepreneurs don't like to go there.
Yeah. And another benefit of having a fractional CFO, especially if you're doing fundraising, trying to get debt, get investors, any external people that are putting money into your business, they like the concept of having that fractional CFO. They like the concept of having an outsider looking in. They don't want to give a business owner $500,000 and not feel like there's somebody you've got to have somebody looking over your business before we give you this money.
Right.
So that's another benefit of having a fractional CFO on board is it's not a big factor in a lender, but it does give them a warm and fuzzy feeling that at least somebody's there looking over the business and looking over these funds that we're investing in the business.
Oh, that makes sense because as a lender or as a fundraiser scenario, whatever, you expect the business owner wants the money. So everything is rosy and beautiful, right? I mean, it's probably, you're right. I can see that. It helps is if this guy who has a vested interest, but not the same interest by any means that the owner, if he believes in it, then at least it gives a little more credibility. But so I think, you know, I was reading some notes and some things you've talked about, and you talk about sometimes that business owners overcomplicate things. They make business hard. What's that? What do you mean by that?
Well, a lot of business owners, a lot of business owners, you know, like myself, come out of the corporate world, right? And they've worked in the corporate world 10, 20, 25 years, whatever, and these corporate processes become ingrained in how they do things, right? And we all know the corporate world can be quite overly complicated. It's large, it's bureaucratic. So it's when you venture out away from the corporate world, start your own small business, it's hard to break that thought pattern. And you really need to get back to basics. And the first one I see all the time is just when you look at cash as bank accounts. I see so many people with way too many checking accounts.
Hmm.
They'll have one. I saw a guy one time. I think he had 6 or 7 checking accounts, and
Wow.
there's this profit first concept that's out there that a lot of people try to live by. I'm not a big fan of it, but this guy he tried to set funds aside. He had an account for future R&D spending, an account for future marketing spending, an account for operating expenses. I mean, he tried to manage every little dollar and split it to these various accounts to be used later. Um, and I've always said you can run any business with 2 checking accounts and a credit card and a line of credit if you can get one.
Yeah. Okay.
And you do that by having a good understanding of your business. I've always been amazed why, if I know I have to process payroll in 2 weeks, why do I have to stick money in a payroll account to make sure that happens? If you have a weekly, which I do with a lot of my clients, if you have a weekly cash flow process and all right, this week I've got to pay this, next week I got to do payroll, week after that I got to pay rent. I mean, if you have everything kind of laid out, you can manage that cash flow with one checking account.
Hmm.
Um, but a lot of people try to run their business and manage their business by multiple cash accounts. And I think that's just overcomplicated. And a lot of people also jump into software that they're really not ready for. A lot of these softwares, I don't care how simple the software might be, it does 1,000 things more than you need it to do, right? I mean, software today it can do anything. So a lot of people jump into software and think software is going to fix a process, and it doesn't work that way. Your processes have to be in order first, and then you can automate them with software. Um, but a lot of business owners, well, we had this big ERP system in the corporate world I just came from. I need one of those too, right?
Oh, yep. Yep.
And it's to manage my 3 vendors and 4 part numbers I've got to produce every month.
Hey, friends, it's Randy here, the owner of Source One Marketing, ibuyfromrandy.com. And I got to tell you, we are proud to sponsor the Building Wins Live podcast and vlogcast. We have 4+ decades in this beautiful industry of supplying materials, supplying services, supplying marketing assistance, and we just are proud to sponsor Building Wins Live and some great guests that we have every single week, many of them from our beloved industry and many of them from outside the industry that still bring some incredible content. So make sure to check us out at ibuyfromrandy.com and let us know what you think about this show. For now, thanks for checking this out. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, so along with that, I think coming from the Fortune 500 world or less into a small business that you started, there's a feeling I think sometimes that having all these layers somehow makes me like a big business or brings some sort of level of credibility. I don't know what they think sometimes. I can't speak for them, but it seems to me, I made a note here as I was talking, is simplicity first, right? I mean, and I think that's what you hit on is we don't need 6 bank accounts if we can do it with 1 or 2. We don't need 5 levels in the accounting department. It's like I'm thinking, let's say you're a sales organization, you're doing $1 million a year. You probably don't need a executive VP of sales and a VP of sales and a national director of sales and a sales manager and assistant sales, right? You need a person, right, to do all of the above until you hit some level that you should. I guess I'm going to ask this question. You should grow the business. You should add layers and add processes as the business grows to demand it, as opposed to putting all this in place and hoping the business catches up at some point. Is that an accurate statement?
That's a very accurate statement. I see that a lot as well, where business owners want to come in and again, I'm starting this business. I need a sales team. I need a sales manager. I need a engineering manager. And I mean, the most successful small businesses I've seen start out with the owner and a couple guys, and they do everything, right? They do everything. They get the business growing, and they know every step of the process. They know every piece of that business inside and out. then as they bring people on and offload some of that work, if they can let go of it, that's another challenge,
Right.
getting an owner to willing to let go of that work and trust the people that he hires. But but yeah, they and a lot of times they'll, I don't know if falls in the category of overcomplication, but as soon as they see a uptick in sales and they have a good quarter, have a good couple of quarters, oh, I need to hire 5 people, right? And then they hire 5 people and they have 2 bad quarters. So
Mm-hmm.
it gets back to forecasting the business and looking down the road and trying to predict what's going to happen before you make those decisions.
Yeah. Makes sense. I do want to talk about the whole concept of budgets, but for a minute, you hit something earlier. I made a note. I tell people when I'm looking down, I'm making notes to circle back. I don't do crossword puzzles, just so you wondered. They bore me.
Yeah.
You said profit first. What do you mean by
Yeah.
that? People operate profit first. Should they?
Yeah,
Should they not? What's that concept?
it's a concept where you a lot of times you sell something, you pay your expenses, and then whatever's left at the bottom is your profit, right? Profit first concept kind of reverses that, where for everything you sell, you set aside your profit first. Let's say you want to make 20%. You sell $100, you take $20 and you set it in an account, set it aside. That leaves you $80 to operate on, right? So that's kind of the profit first, a very simplistic look.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of the approach. The only problem I have with that is cash is not a linear thing.
Right.
You can set that, because the people I've known that have tried that, and they have 2 or 3 cash accounts, and all they do, they end up spending all their time. It's like a shell game, constantly moving money from account to account.
Right.
That $20 I put away last week, I need that this week because I got to buy inventory, they spend more time shuffling. And I've even seen people that, incur bank fees because one of the accounts overdrawn while all the money's sitting over another account. And you can set all this up with auto drafting and you can resolve some of those issues. But I always get back to, like I said before, if you understand your business, you understand your cash flows and what makes your business tick, and you have a cash flow forecast, somebody looking out over that for you, you can plan all this. You can still kind of manage that profit first concept, but don't do it in such a stringent, predictable way. You just kind of go with the flow, and over the long term, you'll get there. That's why you mentioned budgeting, and I'm not a big fan of budgeting. But I am a big fan of having a strategic plan for your business. I mean, what do you want this business to be when it grows up? Right? You want to sell it. You want to pass it off to your children. You want to just, milk it for all it's worth until you retire, and then you don't care what the hell happens to it. Or,
Right.
If you have some plan for your business that kind of drives what you do, and then you're constantly forecasting your business toward that plan. I don't have a lot of need to do a annual budget every year and set our budgets, because that's my experience. Setting a budget usually is just a exercise. You do it, you set a budget, set it aside, and then you go on about your business. So
and yes, you do what you have to do, right? Because like you said, the profit first thing makes sense, and that comes into that play. And just listening to you, that makes sense, unless that $20 that you're going to put in profit means you can't turn the door open because they just came and locked it because you didn't pay the rent. Then probably you need to put that money there, right? Because there's going to be no opportunity for profit if you can't open your business door, right? So, and that's that stringent part, right? If not,
I'm not saying profit first is a bad concept. It's a good way to think about your business,
right?
But the mechanics of doing it is what I have a problem with.
Sure. And it was interesting on budget because, you're right. We all, we might call them budgets, or in the sales world, forecasts, but forecasts are another one of those things that they all make sense. And I understand the exercise. I understand the purpose, but it's like an old military axiom that I will not have exactly correct, but all the best laid plans are fine until the bullets start firing, right? And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I think what you hit is, I think, really important is doing the budgets, doing the forecasting is good. You got to someplace to start. You can't just go, well, I'm gonna sell some stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you probably had to have a little more than that. But
Yeah.
as soon as January 2nd starts and we got through the New Year's Eve, all that stuff, you got zero business again. So
Yeah.
where do we go from there, right? And if
Yeah.
we don't, just because the forecast says we're going to do X dollars, what do we do if we don't do X dollars? Right? Well,
Yeah.
all of a sudden you can get yourself into, I feel like, a situation where the world is ending, and then you start making financial and all kinds of business decisions based on panic, as opposed
Yeah.
to, okay, we're behind budget for a month. It doesn't mean for the
Yeah.
year, right? So, and I think that's where you're kind of getting to, is have the budgets, have the forecast, but you got to have some flexibility too, right?
Yeah, and I have a client that manages this very well. They have a list of goals they want to accomplish for the business, right? They want to invest in equipment, or invest in software, or invest in their people with 401k or training programs or whatever. They have this list of things they want to do. They don't put them in and said, okay, we're going to do it July 13th, right?
Hmm.
They monitor the business, and based on how that business is going and how they forecast it to go for future quarters, at that point they then make a decision. Okay, which one of these items on our list of things to do we want to start working? And they
Hmm.
plug it in and start getting things done that way. And over time, it's a really good way to accomplish your goals within your ability to pay for them, right?
Hmm.
Um, Without the constant exercise of, okay, we got four goals. We're going to do one in the first quarter, one in the second quarter. I mean, you can think about it that way, but you got to be very flexible with okay, what if we can't get this goal done in the first quarter? Will the world come to an end? I mean, how crucial is this goal? What happens if we
Right.
got to push it out to the third quarter?
Right.
You know, so you got to be. That's why I like forecasting. Is you're constantly looking forward, looking ahead, and trying to
Hmm.
plan for those things. Um, yeah.
Well, and I made a note to myself, because I know you talk about business owners being, and we kind of hit it on earlier too, but too optimistic at times. And I think that really is back to the value of what you do, people like yourself do, is you want to have, if you're not going to go into business and be an entrepreneur if you're not optimistic. You got to believe in your cause. You got
Absolutely.
to believe 100%. I will not
Absolutely.
fail. But you got to understand that, like you said, my goal was to hit X by the second quarter, and I didn't hit X. So what do I do with that? So is that a part of where you come into play? I think a lot in what you do as a CFO, fractionalized or other, right? Is
Yeah.
taming that optimism and keeping it there. But okay, we can't. We made 100 grand, and you want to spend 400. Uh, that's not going to
Yeah.
fly. So what do we do about that, right?
Yeah. That's a valid point. A very good way to look at it. It's a matter of controlling that optimism in a more reasonable, realistic approach in the future. Just because you have one good quarter, don't go off all crazy and do all these things that one down quarter is going to put you way behind the eight ball. Um, and that's what I do as a CFO. I'm constantly looking at this. Like I look at their targets, I look at the things they want to get done, that list of to dos they want to do for the business, and help them plan. Okay, how to make that happen, right? We want to invest in this training program for our employees, but we're just not profitable enough yet to do that. Okay, great. What's it take to get profitable enough to do that? So I help with
Mm-hmm.
them. Let's generate those profits so you can do these things you want to get done. And it looks at everything from maybe supplier relationships, supplier agreements. Maybe it's time for a price increase. Maybe they haven't had a price increase in 20 years. Who
Mm-hmm.
knows? Um, so there's all these little steps you can take, and improving a business. They're not monumental steps. A lot of these little changes can have a big impact, like
Mm-hmm.
3 or 5% price increase can have a big impact.
Right.
Reducing your inventory from 60 days on hand to 50 days on hand can have a big impact. Improving your collection from your customers from, it takes 45 days. Now we collect in 35 days. I mean, all these little changes, it's not magic. You got to do some work, but these
Right.
little changes all add up and generate a lot of cash for a business
Mm-hmm.
to do those things they want to do.
I wrote down when you were saying incrementalism. That's something I believe a lot is, and I just think you just nailed it, Ben. Is not always, but most times things good or bad happen incrementally, right? They don't happen. You might get that big hit where you're cruising along at doing $2 million a year, and this $1 million deal comes in. But then, of course, that opens other doors. Are you logistically prepared for all the overhead and the additional to handle that, right? That's not always a plus, right? But secondarily, you typically don't lose business in one big swoop either, normally, right? I mean, there's some incremental involved. You've screwed up too many times, right? You've made promises too many times to where the straw on the camel's back, right? And it is finally broke. So I think you just hit on incrementalism is huge in managing any aspect of the business, right?
Yeah, and you got to definitely be thinking long term. But in those customer relationships, supplier relationships, you got to choose your battles. I see a lot of people get hung up on a short-term issue with a supplier, with a customer, and I say, look, is it really worth fighting this battle now over your top customer? More important to have this guy around for the next 5 to 10 years. Mm-hmm. So you really have to keep the long-term perspective in mind as you're running your day-to-day business.
Yeah.
It really helps. One, it helps reduce the stress level because you're not sweating over every little thing that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
And two, it really you're not shooting yourself in the foot in the short term, or in the long term for the sake of a short-term win.
Right.
So yeah. Now it depends on your type of business too. The fluctuations. Like if you're in the government contracting business and you live from contract to contract, then you're living on the edge there, right? So.
Right. Well, what you just said there, it's kind of that old concept of almost walking over dollars to pick up pennies, right? I'm not going to give in on this customer for $500, but yet you lose his business, so that's worth $50,000 a year to you, right? It's that concept of where does this make sense to just suck it up on that one and keep the goodwill, keep the customer, right? And
right.
Yeah. Then of course the other side of that, right, is not all customers are perfect and not right for you as a business, and there are times to cut that tie too. If it's every invoice, I'm somehow got to give you back 10% because of something. Yeah. Either we have an issue we have to fix, but if not, then that might be a time where this is the way it's got to be, or we're probably not the right fit for you, right?
That's when we started off here, I mentioned those business owners where they just see their sales growing and think everything's fine. That's why you really need to understand your profit by customer, your profit by product line. You may have this customer that you think is doing great, but every invoice is 5 different phone calls. You got to hold special inventory on the books to serve that one customer. So you got a lot of customer support. The guys always calling in wanting this, wanting that. So you really need to have a feel for which customers truly are profitable, which ones aren't. Same thing with product lines. Which product lines are leading the way, which ones are holding you back. And that's where it takes somebody like me to come in and kind of structure the business to generate that information.
Right. I think one of the last things, you've been very kind with your time, but growth. We all want growth in business, right? When is the right, and there's no exact answer, I understand, but to hire a professionalized CFO. If you're starting your business today on a shoestring in the back garage, probably not the day for a Ben, right? But do you hire somebody like yourself prior to really needing them, or after you've made too many mistakes and you're almost forced into it? Is there that perfect time that somebody should start looking at that?
Well, I think it's a good idea to if you don't hire a fractional CFO, consult with one before you need one, right? Have some conversations in advance. If you see things starting to either take off or take a dive, if you see some financial challenges ahead, speak with back to speaking to somebody outside the business. Speak to an objective person that'll give you some honest advice. So get that feedback up front. In terms of the timing of when to bring one on a fractional on board, and when I say fractional, we haven't talked about this, but usually it depends on the client. It varies, but a fractional CFO can be anything from an hour a week, just a few phone calls, or if they're really into the numbers, really doing a lot of the forecasting work for you, it could be 5 to 10 hours a week.
Okay.
So it just varies, but usually when you hit that revenue number, 1 to 5 million, somewhere in that range, you probably good time to start investing in a fractional CFO.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And at some point, as you grow, at some point you get big enough where, and if your fractional CFO is open with you, like he should be, they'll recommend saying, look, you're big enough now where you need to hire a CFO. You need a full-time person there with you, sitting by you, every day. And that could be, it's kind of hard to put a sales figure on the business for that, because all businesses, $100 million business could be very simple, and a $20 million business could be very complicated. So it's really hard. You can't put a number on it. But you need to be aware of that. At some point, the fractional CFO may not fully take care of you. But you're talking usually, at least in my experience, I mean, well, 100 million plus, and when you get really big like that, you usually have someone hired someone on board.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Man, this is really interesting, Ben. I appreciate you. I appreciate all you do. You have a great presence on LinkedIn. People can follow you there. That's the best way to get a hold of you, I assume, if they want to talk to you about your services. As we wrap up, because I do want to be cognizant of your time, especially you probably want to go have dinner, do some work or something. A lot of people frequently ask questions. Wes loves the idea of a should ask question. What have we either missed today, or what do you wish, just when you're out talking to people, that they would just ask you and they never do? What's that should ask question?
The one big issue that people don't ask about, or they don't think about, is, and it's a boring accounting topic, internal controls. Protecting your cash, protecting your assets. I've seen so many businesses where, well, Doris over there has been keeping my books for 20 years and everything's fine. And next thing you know, Doris comes to work one day in a brand new car. 12 months later, Doris is putting a pool in her backyard. And you start to have to ask yourself, what's going on here? So business owners have to be cognizant. They have to be part of these processes. They have to approve payroll. They've got to be involved. They can't just dump all the financials on somebody and say, here, take care of it. They need to be involved from a control standpoint. Make sure there's separation of duties, because small businesses are very highly subjected to fraud and employee theft and things like that. So that's something that very few people. It's one of those things where that'll never happen. I don't have time to deal with it. Right? That's kind of the mentality.
Right.
But it doesn't happen until it happens, and when it does, you're gonna.
Well, for a small business or a upstart, that could be world ending, right?
Yeah, it really could.
And it could happen pretty quickly. So don't shoot and forget. Even though you've got this fractionalized CFO, or you got anybody else, you got to take their advice and listen to them, ask questions, demand answers, make sure that you're comfortable and you're staying in touch, right? That's the key. Don't just do what they say because they said, right? Yeah. You want to be actively involved and not just a spectator.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. Ben, I appreciate you, my friend. This was really,
really
good stuff. That was good stuff, man. You play at top of game, obviously, and it's just a pleasure to have you on. And I'm sure I can think of several people I know right now that are regular watchers of the podcast that they're gonna like a lot of what they heard. So if you get a deal out of this, a Dr. Pepper or two is always appreciated.
I'll tell you what, I'll send a PBJ your way.
PBJ and a Dr. Pepper. Life is good. Wes is happy. I'm happy. You've made the world happy. Look at that.
Yeah,
oh,
absolutely.
Man. So what's up now? You back to work now since you're in Croatia. It's time to get back to work on the U.S. time, isn't it?
Actually, I may just set my record this week for phone calls. So
nice. Well, it means you're busy and a lot going on. So, well, thank you for jumping on with us, and we'll catch up soon and stay in touch, my friend. Because remember one thing: once a friend of Building Wins Live, you're always a friend, buddy.
Thanks a lot, Randy. I appreciate that.
You got it. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks,
appreciate you.
All right. Bye.
All right, there you go. Just out here, loving what we do and doing what we love. Man, we talked about that once or twice, but you can tell Ben loves what he's doing. He's good at it. If you have any interest at all, make sure you reach out to him from the information that's been on the screen. Worst case, shoot me a DM and I'll get it to you because he's definitely worth talking to. For now, remember, live it, love it, own it, and go make today your best day ever. Until tomorrow. Cheers, my friends.